Greetings, my name is Stan Hustad. Welcome to our class. Welcome to, I hope, will be a life experience that will help you become one of the three. That's right, one of the three. And that's what this particular lesson is all about, because it's a start to doing what we believe will help you live a life with greater intensity, greater aliveness, and experience greater success in your life projects, in your career opportunities, and perhaps even in the business you're seeking to build. Let's see if we can make that happen. Actually, our class goes back to 1936. Not me, not quite. Almost, but not quite. That was the year right in the middle of the Great Depression, particularly in America and really throughout the world, in which a gentleman, a particularly younger man, had really worked his way up and was seeking to make his way in the world. He was trying to figure out how he could be successful, coming from an incredibly poor background, and in the middle of an economic recession and depression, how could he make things happen? And he had a lot of ups and downs and backs and forth and failures. A lot of things didn't work out for him. But he began to start to find out, as he watched out, what it might be that would help him to be successful. And he became a keen observer of the human condition and how successful people did their work and how they connected with other people. And then, as he would say, I also watched those people who perhaps made some of the same mistakes that I had made and were not quite as successful as they wanted. The man went by the name of Dale Carnegie, and perhaps you've heard that name. That was 80 years ago. He wrote a best-selling book that was actually based on a series of lectures in which someone took notes. Now think about that, because we talk about that in some of our other classes about how we can become writers. Someone took notes, and as a result of taking notes from his lecture and presentation, a world-class bestseller called How to Win Friends and Influence People came into being. It made Dale Carnegie a worldwide famous, well-known figure. Obviously, he became very, very successful. And even to this day, 80 years later, the book is still around. You can get many used copies, many old copies, but in many ways it's still being published and printed, and people are reading it and finding it useful. Now, what we thought about as we looked into that, a couple of us got together, and then we got a few more people and said, that's a great book, and many of us had read it before, and we said, could it be possible to take some of those ideas and make them a little bit more up to date? Because the world's changed a great deal since 1936, and there are lots of things, both in terms of how life works and how business works, and particularly the technologies that we deal with and the situations we have to connect with and be successful in. Could we have a bit of an update about what it would be to take some of those good ideas, put new ideas with them, bring new experiences to it, and make something that would be worthwhile for you? Kind of a curious, exclusive, special, just for you. By the way, that's an important term to remember, just for you. And we'll talk about that later. The book was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, we're not going to use that title. We're going to make a little different title. Something that we think perhaps has a little greater emphasis on some of the points we want. How to make good friends. We're not just out to win people over. How can we make good friends? And rather than worrying about how we can, influence people, why don't we make our mark? Why don't we achieve something? Why don't we serve people? Why don't we be known for who we have become, what we do, and how we help others? The term make your mark means, very simply, is that there's perhaps a trademark to you. There's something unique and distinct and different about you. To make your mark means that perhaps you have actually done something that has made a difference in the world or your business or your place. Something that's been memorable that people appreciate. And the word mark oftentimes means to have a goal, a benchmark. He made the marks. That means there was a goal set, there was a point of something we wanted to achieve, and we made our marks. So what we're going to be talking about in this class, hopefully it will be talking about back and forth conversations among you and me and the people who hopefully come to this class all around the world, the entire curious community. What will happen is we're going to try and discover how we can have better success in life and business and careers and the business situations. How do we deal with all that stuff in the workplace and throughout the communities we live and work in? How can we make our mark, and how can we make good friends? And do something that is not only responsible and helpful and ethical, as well as successful and profitable. How can we bring that together? Now, if that rather appeals to you, I believe you are in the right place. And I hope that you will join us and go through the lessons that we have, the 10 lessons that we have that will help you make more good friends, because friends are vital. And then how we can begin to make our mark in the marketplace, in the community, in the world that we inhabit, and perhaps the world that we all inhabit. Now, one of the principles that was not quite known when Dale Carnegie wrote his book was based on some research that was done later on in the 1960s by a man named David McClellan. And he began to ask the question, what does it mean to be successful? And how do people do that? I mean, we realize that some people are successful and some people are not. And wouldn't it be nice if we could discover some of the systems and practices and ways of living that would help us to be successful? Now, people like Dale Carnegie, they didn't have any money to begin with. Obviously it would help to have money to be successful. As someone said, well, being born healthy, wealthy, and good looking helps. It certainly does. But what we have discovered is there's something else much more important that will help us to be successful, to make good friends and make our mark and achieve the things that are important to us. Here's what we've discovered, that the ability to visualize and set a goal, to set a mark out there, to have a long, clear vision of what we would like to have, what we would like to do, and what we would like to become. These are the things we'd like to have. Good job, nice car, good family. What do I want to have? What do I want to do? Take a trip, do a vacation, see the world. What do you want to do? And more importantly, what do you want to become? Having is good. Doing may be even better. Becoming may be best of all. And the way you become everything you could be is by deciding who and what you are called to serve. If you want to be successful in life, you have to serve others. Einstein, it is said toward the end of his life, said that success in life was not relative. We are here for a purpose, and that purpose is to serve other people. We are here for others. Now, if that can, as I used to say on the radio, sit on our head, maybe sink to our heart, spread to our very inmost being, that might be something really important to understand. But what David McClellan discovered was that the setting of those goals was not something that people did naturally. In fact, it seems to be a little bit of an unnatural act. We just kind of get used to living day by day, dealing with the day, going from here to there. And most people live with very little purpose and direction in their lives. They kind of are creatures of the wind or of the waves or of the moment. And here's what he discovered. About 3% of the population, only 3 out of 100, really have taken the time to figure out what they want out of life. And they've written that down. They've given it a lot of thought. They've started to work plans and do intentional things that will make those things happen. They are continually looking for opportunities and moves they can make and ways they can serve and opportunities they can take to achieve those things that mean a lot to them. And those tend to be people who, obviously, tragedies and accidents and bad things happen. They certainly do. Things out of our control. But 3% of the population are those people who move in that direction. They live that way. 10% of the population is very close. They obviously thought about life, and they have some intentions and perhaps even some goals. They're not quite as clear and as focused, and they may not have quite the energy behind them. But these people are generally quite successful in life. I mean, they know what they want in many, many ways. Well, that leaves us 13%, 3% who really are focused, 10% who are well-oriented and have a degree of focus. The vast majority of people are in the 60%. As I simply say, they have lots of hopes and wants and wishes. Someday, it would be nice. I would like that. And these are people who, from time to time, go through life, moving from here to there, perhaps fascinated by this idea, moving to that idea, and living life pretty much as it comes to them. Certainly they have some short-term goals and acquisitions. They certainly have things that they see immediately in their future that perhaps they'd like to achieve, or they realize that they need a new car, or perhaps a new house would be nice, or whatever it is. But these are people who live pretty much in the moment, which is good in many ways, but they have no long, clear vision of what life and business and career should be like. And so oftentimes they live with regrets at the end, saying, I wish I would have, I wish I could have, and we don't want to live that way. The last thing we discovered was that 27% of the population, okay, you figured out, 3, 10, 60, 27, simply deal with the day. And these are people who have just, many times they've just given up. They have no real hopes, no particular real visions. They just take life as it comes if they can. And because they may have things that have come into their life, some tragedies or some emotional damage or addiction, who knows? It just is that these people have landed up in a situation where they are not becoming what they want, and perhaps not becoming anywhere near what they could be. I taught school for many years and have worked with many people around the world, and one of the great joys is to see people truly become. As one of the ladies I was working with said to me after our first session, she said, Stan, I want to be one of the 3. And that's what she spent the next 25 years of her life doing. And she's lived that way, ups and downs and back and forth, and she's achieved many great and good and wonderful things. And even though she's no longer young, she's achieved a great deal, but she's looking forward to the next step, the next adventure in life. What should she go for now that she's achieved professional and financial success? What's the next thing she should do in her life to live fully? What does she want to have and do and become and serve now? So that's where we are at. What I'm going to ask you to do is just let this whole idea sit on your head for a while. Talk about it. Perhaps share it with other people. What does it mean to be a 3%er? Then I simply want you to do this. I want you to take a notebook, maybe a piece of cardstock, and I simply want you to start to put 3 columns on it. And keep it with you. Just start to list. Blue skies, green lights, don't limit yourself. What are the things you want to have in your life? as you get older, as you become perhaps a person of greater influence and greater success, what are some of the things you want to have in your life? Just start. Now, you know what's going to happen? Kind of a little part of your brain's going to say, oh, who do you think you are? You aren't one of those people. You can't do that. You can't live that way. And what many people call the lizard brain, the resistance, creeps up on you, and those bad old tapes that you may have heard from a teacher or a parent or somebody says, you can't do that. That will happen. Try and turn it off. What do you want to have? Then, what do you want to do? Again, blue skies, green lights, no limitations. What would you really like to do in the time and life that remains to you? And then as you think about how that will shape you both in terms of your character and your achievements and who you are, particularly in your relationships, what would you like to become? What are some of the words that you would describe? How would you like to become? And then I would simply ask you to do this. With that in mind, how do you want to be remembered? The classic question in life is, when you're done, what do you want people to say about you? This is profoundly important. I have discovered that very successful people are quite clear in many ways about how they want to be remembered. As I point out, when that final eulogy or service or whatever you're going to have, in which your family and friends and those who've known you and had association with you come together, and they think about you, they perhaps look at your body there, or perhaps look at the picture of you there, or simply the remembrance of you, and if they said, this is my friend, this is my brother, this is my sister, this is my father, this is my mother, this is my cousin, this is one of my best friends, let me tell you how I remember them. What would you want them to say? In terms of your relationships, your character, your achievements. Now that's how we begin. And Dale Carnegie didn't quite have that part of the picture in mind. He was close and he knew a great deal about some of that, but now we know the incredible power there is in purpose-led living. The great ability of the mind to help us to achieve and attract those things into our life that we want. So there we go. That's our first lesson in how we're going to make good friends and then perhaps make our mark. Be one of the three. And what is that going to mean to you and to me and to all of us together? Thank you. We've got lots of good other things to learn, but first of all, take time to be one of the three.